Hi, my name is Brendan Crosdale, and welcome to the LAN party. I'm here today with our producer and co-host, Andrew Nelson.
Hello.
Now I'm going to get this title wrong. The Craft Services...
Master General.
The Craft Services Master General, Mike McLaughlin.
The one and only.
And the ever-present Baron of the West End, James Lowry.
Thank you. You're too kind.
And we are all super excited today.
I didn't know I was here with royalty.
You are. The only royalty in the West End.
That's fair
He
enough.
consolidated powers.
I mean, he's a member of the aristocracy doesn't mean he's related to the royalty.
It was a violent overthrow.
It was rough.
We are pitted in constant battle with the East End.
Well, we're pretty rowdy and excited. We didn't get a chance to do a first of the year broadcast or a New Year's type thing because of when we started this, but we are super excited about 2015 because it's got so many video games coming out, and we decided we wanted to take a chance on the podcast to talk about upcoming video games we're excited about. Not necessarily in the immediate year ahead of us because, delays and things get announced so early now, but the games that we're looking forward to playing. So each of us today has brought a few to the table, and we're going to discuss them for you. So who's got a game they're just dying to dish on?
I'm going right over here, Brendan.
Right,
I think we're all going to be dying to talk about this one. What everyone else out there needs to understand is that we're called the LAN party because we all like to get together and LAN. We're big into team battles, and there's one game that really piqued my interest, and that's Rainbow Six Siege.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's definitely on my list as well.
Yes.
It combines all those best elements of Counter-Strike. You start out, you have the quote-unquote good guys, your SWAT team, counter-terrorists, MI6, whatever it is they are. SAS, yeah. Some badass MFs. Right up against some really dirty, nasty terrorist, mongrel, monster, whatever you want to demonize them as.
The bad guys.
But where it deviates from Counter-Strike from there is it's not just a straight twitch shooter running down the hallways or maybe stacking up on your team. All the environments in the game are essentially completely destructible, which plays a very important role because at the start of the game, the terrorists or the hostage keepers, they run around wherever it is they're defending and they get to figure out which windows to bar, where to plant trip mines.
Yeah, it's almost like you get that little RTS pop out at the beginning where you can see like the plans of the building. And,
Absolutely. And it starts where they're on this cooperative front of they have to decide where are the counter-terrorists coming from and how do we stymie their approach. And then on the other side, counter-terrorists, they can drop in by helicopter, as you can see from the old E3 videos. They drop down onto the roof of this building. And then they can rappel down, throw grenades through windows. They can drop bombs to blow up floors so they can shoot down underneath. It's one of the most intense combinations of destructible environments.
The drone cameras that you can control.
Oh my god, those are
like
amazing.
the little tiny
It's
throw them under the doorway.
Everyone in that game is playing Batman.
Yeah.
You have a utility belt like you couldn't believe.
Yeah,
I'm beyond all excited.
Yeah, I actually was. That's on my list as well. Mostly because I love co-op multiplayer games, whether it's killing people online or killing computers with your friends or against your friends even. And that E3 that you referenced, that E3 gameplay video was like blew me away. I remember seeing it before we even discussed doing this podcast, and I was already really excited. One thing that I love about that game is how squishy everybody is. It's realistic. I mean, you take 3 hits and you're done. And you can't, you could spectate, but you can't really, do anything.
Yeah, I know. From looking at the gameplay, I remember there was a lot of speculation when they were showing it just after E3. Were there going to be refilling health pools, or, was there going to be some kind of health regen or something, or was this classic Rainbow Six? You have the fixed health. When it's gone, you're dead, you're out. And I believe they've clarified it since then that it is going to play like that, so it's very cutthroat like the original. And for somebody who loves Counter-Strike as much as I do, just seeing that, the no respawn multiplayer, the high precision, high skill cap, the ambushing each other through the walls and using the different tips and tricks and just trying to outfox one another the whole time. That game just looks like a beast to play. It looks so much fun.
The environment destruct does deserve a mention. It's absolutely gorgeous, down to the little bits of grainy particles coming out of the bullet holes in the wall. It's...
For those of you who can go look up the videos, I would recommend, because there is one point where they position 2 people by a door and they have a person, one of their team members, plant a bomb in the ceiling above where the other room is. They blow a hole and then they can flank them from 2 sides because they have one person gunning down this new hole in the ceiling and 2 people breaking through the door.
Yeah, there's a lot more strategy, planned strategy to a game like Rainbow Six as opposed to Counter-Strike, which is, for the most part, you run in and you shoot. And there's different attack points, but like this...
Well, I don't know if it has more strategy than Counter-Strike. I think because it gives you that new element of going through the environment, it's creating new pathways to use.
Yeah. Well, yeah, okay. I guess that's what I meant, but you know, understanding like, okay, the terrorists have the hostage in this room. So you go upstairs, we'll stay down here, we'll breach the door once you breach the ceiling.
Yeah.
And I mean, for the other Rainbow Six, the last one that came out was Vegas 2. Rainbow Six Vegas 2. They had a PSP game or some sort of like a mobile app game that just came out 2-3 years ago, I think. I don't know. I don't play mobile games. But this is being developed by Ubisoft Montreal.
Is it Montreal?
Yeah, it's okay. Ubisoft Montreal, and
which is a really solid team.
They are a really solid team. What else have they done?
They worked on Assassin's Creed, 2 editions that have been produced up from that.
Yeah.
Montreal's the base of a lot of their indie in-house production. They put out Child of Light this past year.
Gotcha.
It's like those are their hometown heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're also putting out another game that we'll, I'm sure, touch on, or at least I'm definitely going to touch on later on. Not Montreal, but Ubisoft. Which is actually another in the Tom Clancy franchise. But, yeah.
Just segue into it.
All right,
if we're talking about upcoming games,
all right,
we're going to talk about The
Division.
Division.
The next one that I'm excited about, this is Andrew. Just in case you don't know yet, is The Division. Tom Clancy's The Division. Now, I'm really excited about this game because they've developed a whole new engine for it, which Brendan still claims does not exist.
Well, I 100% believe it exists in some form. I'm worried that Snowdrop is maybe more tech demo than real game, but...
Well, okay, actually, I'm gonna swing back to Siege again, because my one worry about what we've seen so far with this game is that we're gonna get burned like we did with, it was back in like 2006 or 7, Killzone 2. They put out this quote-unquote gameplay. None of it was pre-rendered. It was all gameplay footage, and it was gorgeous. And then you played the game, and it did not measure up.
Yeah,
it came out later on that it was pre-rendered.
Yeah,
I do worry that what we're seeing with Siege and possibly with The Division is a pre-rendered video, because we've all talked about it. We think that the voiceover, James and I especially think that the voiceover is something that was pre-recorded or recorded after the fact and added onto the video.
This is my feel in this area, and this is why I don't think that's the case. I think with Killzone's instance, they were under pressure because they were trying to make a Halo killer.
Yeah.
They were trying to win the console wars.
You can't kill Halo.
But in this case, we have a really well-established developer putting out 2 games in a franchise that is huge. It's one of the biggest in the game industry. It's absolutely massive. Yeah. And in both cases, they're trying to innovate and stray away from their own style of making games.
Yeah. Well, I think Siege is on Snowdrop as well.
Yeah, but I think looking at it, like the E3 demo is scripted. I think they had a plan of what they were going to say and what they were going to do each time, and that's why it probably has that not candid feel. But people have had hands-on with it. There have been people in the press who had access to the game, and I think they've had it at a couple events where they demoed it, where people were able to do that house shootout.
Yeah.
So it's in some workable form.
Okay, so it is playable. If you go to a con or something like that, you might be able to actually play it.
Some people have laid hands on that game.
Okay.
And also
brought it back to life.
It doesn't have the kind of ambition that makes me think that game is unmakeable. I think that is totally within the realm of tech that we have, and I think that we've seen games like it that just don't have the kind of refinement we're seeing, that kind of investment in the destructible environments and the kind of graphics, gameplay, and things. It feels very next gen, but like it should, it feels very harkening back to a million other shooters we've played.
Oh, James has a point. Sorry.
Unless you're not done with your game.
No, go ahead. I'm going on to The Division. I have a lot to say about it.
I can segue into possibly imaginary games, and so long as I can keep you on that same tack. Sure. One game that I would be very excited for if it comes to fruition is No Man's Sky, because
we'll come back to The Division. I want to talk about
I think this is part of it too.
Yeah.
The exploration, the fluid change in between a terrestrial and a space environment, space combat, ground combat, and exploring. Just it needs to be said twice. But at the same time, we're talking about a 4-man development team, and I'm not busting on the UK but creative studios really let me down with Rome Total War 2. And we're starting to get into a part in the game industry that I'm not very comfortable with, because we're getting a lot promised but not a whole lot delivered.
Yeah.
Well, you know what that game really reminds me of? Even looking at it just aesthetically and everything, it reminds me of Spore, which is not a good game for anything to remind you of, because that was the instance where for so long there was so much hype about what this game was going to be, and everyone was so excited for it. It looked like an absolute revolution in game making, that it was going to spawn this whole generation of a new type of games.
Haha, Spawn.
That's not
Sorry.
what happened. As we all look back to 2008 in history, that game dropped. And
Yeah, no, a lot of people
it
made
was
penis-shaped
underwhelming
monsters
as
and
hell.
got really bored playing it. That was
Yeah.
pretty much the end of that game.
After the 30th dick alien that you saw, you're like, oh, okay, well, we're done.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing with, and the Division is sort of in the same camp, although not so much as I fear No Man's Sky, is that its promise is so much, it almost seems impossible for them to deliver on what they build it as. And No Man's Sky in particular, the developers are frustratingly vague about what state the game's in and what it's doing.
Real quick, can you give a breakdown of the premise of the game?
Yeah, for anybody who hasn't seen the footage, you should definitely check it out. No Man's Sky, as far as we understand, is a first-person game where it's space exploration-based, where you are a man and his spaceship, and you travel through a procedurally generated galaxy.
Beautiful, beautiful romance.
Yeah.
Man in a spaceship.
Yeah, and the idea is supported wholeheartedly by the design. It has this art aesthetic in the footage we've seen that harkens back to a lot of 1970s pop sci-fi fiction novel covers and posters and,
Lots of bright, vibrant colors.
Yeah.
things that make sense in that age of like glorious high sci-fi.
Loads of Roger Dean and Mobius
Yeah.
just everywhere, bleeding out of every orifice.
And the idea of the game is
God.
that despite the fact that it takes place in a single shard world that I guess all of the players would experience, you are so vastly separated from one another within this world it would be extraordinarily difficult to ever encounter another player. And each person is constantly encountering other worlds that have been procedurally generated and sort of leaving their mark on them.
Which means that they're generated as you go down to them.
In theory.
In theory.
Now, this is where it starts to get a little vague because the developer talks about the engine they used to make this and that it made a equivalently sized, mathematically, galaxy for you to explore as our own. And the math on that alone is a little staggering. And then when you consider the fact that they're like, that world will be persistent, so no matter how quickly anybody's exploring it, it will continue to exist as one permanent thing that you could, in theory, travel to another player's set of explored worlds. And that the game can somehow maintain its level of diversity and quality across that. And then on top of that, they're not a whole lot specific about what you actually do in these worlds other than discover them. They've shown footage of you getting in these kind of dogfights in space. They've shown footage of you seeing these creatures that you can mingle with on the planets.
Cool alien dinosaurs.
Right,
Alien
but
dinosaurs.
they never showed you, like, do you hunt those? Do you gather materials on those planets? Are you building things? And they've alluded to the fact that, there's a crafting system, and you'll need things from places, and they're made up things, like transformium that you'll get somewhere, and that'll be great, but they don't really tell you what you do it with. And they keep throwing these kind of vague allusions towards other things people like, and that's when I start to get nervous, because they're like, oh, well, it has some elements in it that are Minecraft-esque. And it's like, okay, that's quick and easy to say, but it's not really describing what's going on.
Right.
And where it gets concerning for me is when they struck that deal for exclusivity with Sony, this had a timeline on it, right? Like, they were like, this game's coming out not only in this console generation, it's coming out soon. Like, they never went as far as giving a release date, but they've implied pretty heavily this game will either be out this year or next year. And given the fact that it's a very small team that previously worked on Joe Danger and some other smaller games, they haven't done anything this ambitious. And it's a passion project, so those could take longer and have some complicated nature. The game itself is incredibly ambitious in its design and the fact that it's all procedurally generated. And then loaded on top of that, their studio was completely annihilated last year. The physical campus they worked in was flooded and destroyed beyond repair.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah, and since the Sony deal, they've been back on track working on the game. They've shown another sizzle reel. They had one at PSX, but nobody's gone hands-on with it. And my soul aches for this game, this like Star Foxy experience of flying around and fighting other jets, and then you can go down, you can literally like, I see a moon, I'm gonna fly down to the moon and land at the space base and be a space, it's so cool.
Yeah.
But does it exist? Am I gonna get burned?
To me, it has a lot of the same feel as a Peter Molyneux game, where as it's getting hyped up, only half the words coming out of his mouth are going to be true. But those half of the words are going to make a great game.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I think not as extremely is my feeling about The Division. I feel like Ubisoft is definitely a company that can produce this game they're talking about making. But man, after Watch Dogs, the troubles we had with Assassin's Creed coming out, even some of the issues with Far Cry 4.
They pushed Assassin's Creed. I mean, they ended up having to give that expansion, Dead Kings, away.
Yeah.
As a we're sorry for all of the glitches.
And
because your character just runs around humping everything. Jesus.
This city, it makes me feel romantic.
Limboon.
To be fair, sometimes you do have to give away the house, but it's worth it. You know?
Yeah. Well,
it's a great game.
The concern that I have is they're such a diverse studio. Like, even though they have millions of staff in all these different locations and everything, is that they have a lot of games going on.
Yeah.
And if Snowdrop is as powerful an engine as they've been demoed with the real-time movement of weather, all the occlusion and all the particle effects that they built into it, the massively destructible environments, and just the huge forensic evidence of the world you're in, that to me seems like a very ambitious game to be setting timetables on.
So, all right. So, The Division for me is this game that I think about and I get really excited because, like we're talking about, it might not happen, so I try not to get too excited, but the more I hear about this game and the more I see of it, the more excited I get. So, it should be noted that nothing we've talked about so far, Rainbow Six Siege, No Man's Sky, and The Division, have a release date. These are the games that we're going to get out of the way now because we have no idea.
Right.
This is being developed by Ubisoft as well. The general idea is it takes place in New York City after some massive illness, like biological warfare possibly, breaks out. Bloodborne illness breaks out. And civilization just goes to fucking hell. And you're part of this Splinter Cell group called The Division. You're a federal group that is there to basically keep civilization on track.
Yeah, you're like sleeper agents.
Yeah, you're sleeper agents. You're trained.
Activated post disaster.
Exactly. Like you only are activated when this situation or something like this happens. Basically, the super elite FEMA team.
Imagine
And
these guys in FEMA vests with like M16s kicking down doors.
well, okay. So the first I saw of this was a trailer. It was set to Silent Night, and it's this, super quickly paced, almost stop motion, frame by frame sort of thing of this family falling apart, the daughter dying, the wife dying, the husband losing his mind and then blowing his brains out. You don't see any of the people, but you see like the things that are left as these movements happen. And then it goes down and it reveals your character and blah, blah, blah. And what initially caught me about the game is that they rescue this guy from these looters, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to be able to take out looters. And then a dump truck rolls up with a bunch of dudes with gas masks on and flamethrowers. And your character, or the character that you presumably will be playing, has like his crew of 3 or 4 other people, and they pull out like this drone, like machine gun that they pull out and it unfolds and sets up. And, I was pulled in at that point. And then I saw the gameplay and was just blown away by the graphically and just some of the technology that they're incorporating.
Like the PS Vita integration.
Yeah, the Vita integration.
Yeah, they have the mobile controls for the drone.
It looks extremely interesting. But
Yeah.
The question is it going to be a gimmick or is it actually going to revolutionize gameplay?
Yeah, well, two of the concerns that I have about The Division, aside from when it will be released, I know it'll come out, obviously, with the amount of time they've invested in it, but when it's released, who knows? The second problem I have is how this game is going to work. They're talking about how it's going to be ad hoc multiplayer with small squad based.
Well, the way that the ad hoc, from what I've understood, works is that there are certain zones in New York, parts of Brooklyn, whatever, Central Park, whatever, where it is contested zone. So if you go in there, you are basically, quote unquote, consenting to possible multiplayer interactions.
So we're going back to Stranglethorn Vale.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Well, except
no World of Warcraft references for this podcast, I swear to God.
Well, and that's the thing about it is this game, the way they're describing the way it's going to play with its loot system and everything like that, it looks like a lot like Destiny. And
yeah, in a way, I suppose.
Where it might have a stronger narrative element to it. I mean, if it has one, it will probably be stronger. And it has these other things built into it. I'm wondering how deep its hooks are going to stay, especially if this game has any problems.
Well,
if it's not working right and it feels like a lot of other games, which right now, from the gameplay footage, it does look like a lot of other games. It looks like a MMO version of Splinter Cell.
yeah. I mean, I can understand that. One of the things that it both makes me more excited about the game and more worried is that it's a generated New York City. It's accurate. Which, of course, they've done things like this before with Grand Theft Auto, with Los Angeles and whatnot.
Don't forget Assassins.
And Assassin's Creed with Paris and everything like that. But what's interesting for me is that you actually everything changes the longer you play the game. There are social areas in the game. There are camps where it's neutral. You can go in there, you can trade, you can buy with other players.
We think
that's what they've said is going to be in the game. So that's as much info as we have. That's what they've said. And from what I understand as well, the weapons are going to be super customizable. Destructible universe. We saw one gameplay footage video of this guy NPC was hiding up behind this banner, and you could just shoot through the banner and kill him, which was awesome. And I think that there is going to be a plot. Now, what little plot they've revealed, aside from the fact that civilization has fallen apart, is that it's not like a fix-it situation. Like, it's not like other games where you get into something like this and then you're like, oh no, the president's still alive, we can reinstate the government. It's like, civilization is fucked. How do we keep it from getting more fucked and start to rebuild? I like that. I like that it's not like a happy, fun time end of the game, and it's probably gonna be a lot like Destiny, where there is no end game to it. There's no beating the plot line.
A lot of that Isaac Asimov Foundation idea of, well, we're going to lose, but let's just cushion the fall a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, and I guess that's where my concern springs from, is I do think it'll inherently have a stronger narrative than Destiny, but I don't think it's going to have a strong gameplay. Especially with what they've shown. Ubisoft, for me, they are not a studio I think of with strong mechanics. Far Cry is the sole example I can think of that they make of a game that is sound mechanically to play. And
we all know Assassin's Creed can be a total nightmare.
Yeah, and they have trouble hitting that note. And with a game with that many cooks, there's a lot that can go wrong. Yeah. I don't want to write it off. Like, I'm super jazzed for it. I will obviously play the living hell out of it. I like the idea that I can sit down and play it with my friends, and we can walk through this destroyed New York and discover things, and get into the little fights with the crazies with their gangs of who knows Twinkie hoarding maniacs. But
speaking of us and gang fights, I know that all we've talked about so far has been team shooters, with the exception of one space game, but it's all been team shooters. But I need another team shooter to talk about, and that's going to be Overwatch.
All right. Yep.
Yeah, Overwatch would be the game I'm most anticipating next year. I cannot wait.
Could I get a synopsis on that? Because I'm completely in the dark on that one.
Ooh.
Imagine if Blizzard had just made Team Fortress and they made it better.
Yeah.
Better?
Oh, yeah. So
it looks better.
What they've done, they built an arena shooter, similar, I guess, in some ways to Team Fortress, but they've incorporated a massive amount of MOBA elements to it. It has a bunch of individual heroes that you
MOBA,
select.
just for anybody who might not know, means
multiplayer online battle arena.
like Dota.
Yeah, we were talking about
Heroes
games
of
like
the
Dota,
Storm,
League of Legends, Heroes of the Storm.
which is a new one. That's actually on my list for this year, too.
Yeah, that's another game that I'm really looking forward to, also by Blizzard. But what they've done is basically there's two teams of good guys and bad guys, and you select a fixed number of heroes from within those lists that you can play as, and they all have unique abilities. Like, you play as the big strong guy with a hammer, and you run around, and it's about melee, and
Aren't you a giant gorilla?
There's a giant gorilla, who smashes things with his fists. He has some glasses on. And then...
I'm Professor Bananas.
Right. There'll be the sniper type support character and all these things, but they have very focused roles. So then within your 5-person team, you use the role play of each character to support whatever objective-based game you're playing. So you can have your team assembled out of the characters that will most support your strategy you're using. Where they change it up from a lot of other MOBAs, though, is that after every death, you have the opportunity to switch to another character, so you can bring in another toolkit, and the game can evolve as you keep playing it. The thing about it is, the gameplay they've showed us, and the cinematic trailer, just powerhouse over the quality we've seen in anything else.
Yeah.
Like, what they have already in their alpha is just an unbelievable piece of work.
The cinematic I mean, it pretty much might as well have been made by Pixar.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. It was perfectly put together.
It was content, right? Like it was just the perfect little story that it wanted to tell.
It was an excellent establishing shot.
Imagine the
whole game.
Incredibles with guns.
Right. And it was just like beyond gorgeous. And then on top of that, the gameplay they showed was out of control. Like the design of the abilities they've demoed and the people who got to play it at BlizzCon have like wholeheartedly supported the idea that this is good. It's very well balanced. It's very tightly made. It plays really well. And graphically, it is so gorgeous. The design behind this game is just like unreal.
Even Gabe Newell had to tip his cap.
Oh, yeah. I cannot wait for Overwatch. And everything I hear about it just gets me more and more excited for this game. We don't know for certain if this is what Project Titan was supposed to be, but they've more or less admitted that this was at least a portion of it. And to know that that's a project they've been working on since the second year of WoW, they've had a lot of time to invest in this. And it just shows. And
I mean, I'm always excited for any sort of cartoony shooter game. I really liked all of the different characters that they have. Mm-hmm. They have a guy who looks like a character or a player in our D&D game that you you DM. He looks exactly like Silas. He looks like he has this mask, this white mask.
Yeah,
he's a sniper,
and he's got the big guns.
He's got the big gun. He is Silas.
What I especially like about it is it's a very original looking new IP AAA title.
Yeah.
And I mean, already we've talked about, a new indie game that may or may not be coming out. It's super speculative. But then, of course, we talked about 2 Tom Clancy games, which are, as much as these two vary on the theme, it is still more of the same. It's another Tom Clancy shooter.
Yeah. It's nothing new. This is actually a new, not idea for a game, but it's a new iteration of something. It's a new IP.
And like Blizzard's last 2 IPs, this one as well is going to be free to play. So just like Hearthstone and Heroes of the Storm, the investment in it is going to be microtransactions. At least for Heroes of the Storm, that has been almost solely cosmetic.
You have to buy the game outright, but then you can play it for free after.
Well, in theory, Heroes of the Storm will be completely free.
Sorry, the other one.
Which one?
What we were just talking about.
Hearthstone or Overwatch?
Overwatch.
Overwatch, they're saying is free to play. Straight
Wow.
up. And it'll be with microtransactions, which I'm guessing will be largely cosmetic, like with a lot of other MOBAs.
Is that a PC only or console?
They haven't said yet. When they got asked that at BlizzCon, they kind of dodged around it. They said, since doing a lot of the ports that they've done, particularly with Diablo and finding a lot of success on the new consoles, combined with the ease of development for consoles now, they're feeling more comfortable saying, yeah, we're going to look into it seriously, but they haven't committed whether it will be coming to a console or not. So right now, it's just PC.
Gotcha.
Well, if we're talking about economy, I think I really got to open up Star Citizen. I sort of wanted to go
this for a while.
Yeah, I used it in school. It was a good example for starting a business because these guys don't even have a marketable product yet. And, well, I'm having a little bit of trouble bringing up recent numbers, but about a month ago, they had raised $65 million
Wow.
through Kickstarter and also selling ships for the game that they can't sell to you yet because it's not done.
So now Star Citizen, the vague thing I know about this is in the freelancer realm of games, right? It's the sort of, you're in space, you can mine and trade and...
It is a space trading and combat simulator.
Okay.
It looks like the release date projected is 2016.
Yeah, so not till next year.
Yeah, but considering how small of a group of guys this is and how much money they raised, that's still
production
huge.
team.
Yeah.
Proven production team, because if you were ever a fan of the Wing Commander series, these guys are right back in the driver's seat. And even I, being a big fan of the Wing Commander series, am so surprised at the voracious nature of the fan base. Yeah. I mean, you bring up Wing Commander and I have to go to my phone to find out the head of that studio, and they know his name and they speak it with reverence and awe.
I mean, that's right up there with Rogue Squadron. As far as the old space dogfight games go, they're classics. Yeah. That game never disappointed.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting to see that there's $65 million worth of interest in it, too. We just had, this year was the release of Elite Dangerous, which came out and was really highly anticipated as a sequel to Elite, which is the same kind of game. You know, you just fly through space, you trade, you mine, you're a pirate, you fight different people. And it was gorgeous. It had the really kind of depth to the control scheme and piloting the ships and everything, so much so that actually some people were upset about how finicky it is, because you actually have to know how to fly the ships. If you're going to land on a landing pad and not destroy your investment, you have to know how to land it correctly and stuff. Elite came out, and it's been lukewarm reception-wise. I have a couple of friends who've been playing it, along with some of the critical reviews, and people are like, yeah, it's great. It's very grindy. It doesn't have a whole lot you can do once you're in there other than sort of repeat the same tasks, but there's just a massive market for people who love those space sims. They just adore those games. I mean, Eve is another example of that. We've all dipped a toe in there now and again. And I think if they were able to generate $65 million in interest on it, is it a Kickstarter or some crowdfunded? Yeah.
And we now have updated numbers that as of December 2014, they've added another $3 million to it, making it $68 million.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, just some spending cash for the swimming
the
pool.
largest Kickstarter in history? If memory serves, it had hit the high score. They could put in their 3 initials.
The closest in the gaming industry, I believe, came somewhere around about 10 or 11 million dollars. And the thing is that when the person writing the article describes $11 million as a paltry sum, you kind of know that you're dealing with something a bit different.
Yeah, I mean,
something special's going on. I just don't know what it is. I just hope it's a good game, because I have friends who've already spent way too much money on spaceships, and I hope that they don't have a sad day.
Is this a friends with air quotes around it? Is it you?
No. This is exactly why I'm trying to stay away from this game, right? Because I've got
all of your money.
Because I've got my buddy Shale all the way out in Arizona, and I get this feeling that he sits down on the computer and his mouse gets itchy. You know,
it's just buying dreams. Yeah, I think it's rad that these space games are coming back. There's actually another game that's coming out on PC soon called Dreadnought. I don't know if you check this out. It's sort of, in a lot of ways, it's an arena shooter, but you're playing it with just massive space ships. They're like these giant, like, capital ship kind of warfare where you slowly turn and pitch the ship around and activate targets and things. They had some pre-footage for it. Not only is it gorgeous, but the gameplay looks kind of unique because it has that weird pacing to it, because everything is slow and hard to turn, and you have to really plan your movements, and it's very
That sounds like a James game, actually.
Yeah. But is it going to have that sort of gate factor that a game like Steel Battalion did, where it was very much that high strategy, wielding the giant machine, having to have that expert control, like you're actually flying or piloting a great vehicle, that turned a lot of players away.
Yeah, IGN put up a pre-release kind of review thing where somebody had hands-on with it, and I want to say it was Vincent Giannino. I don't know, though we can link the article in the description, but when he played it, he was actually comparing it most closely to shooters, because he said they really nailed the idea that even though it's this huge ship and it feels that way, that it's slow and lumbering and things like that, you feel in control. It somehow has managed that conceit where it's not so cumbersome to play. You're put off by the investment in it. Like, you can pick it up and you're like, okay, this is how I use the various batteries on the ship. This is how I use its super weapons or whatever. And then the individual ship roles all feel very cleanly defined. Like the light frigate that can cloak and sneak behind enemy lines is quite fragile, but it's very good at doing ambushing and things like that. Or you can be the hulking atrocity in the back with the millions of guns that just lays down fire.
I've found that you just want to give that good feeling of firepower in that situation. You want to be thinking, I'm in charge of a gunboat. How fast do I want my gunboat to be? Do I want all of the guns, or do I want to be able to move a little bit faster? And it's very nice to be able to play with both of those options. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, what you want is a feeling of tactical effectiveness.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I have one more theoretical game, and then I really want to move into the games that we know for sure are like coming out in the next few months or by, third or fourth quarter of the year. My one thing that I want to see is I want to see Mass Effect remastered and re-released on the PS4.
You want that re-release trilogy?
Yeah, I want it because I didn't have a next-gen system to be able to play Mass Effect 2 or 3.
A next-gen, last-gen?
Yeah, well, at the time, that current next-gen, whatever, shut up.
You didn't have a 360 or a PlayStation 3.
Right. I had a 360, but when I went to college, I had to leave it behind. I didn't get to play anymore. My brother got it. He just played a bunch of shitty games on it.
Well, I can say with no inside knowledge of this whatsoever, you 100% will get that game. I have no doubt the closer we get to Mass Effect 4's release, they will do that. And
they've been doing that with Mass Effect 2 was on the PlayStation Now.
yeah, and once PlayStation Now goes subscription, it's a little easier to kind of digest. I'm sure by then they'll put 3 on there.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of having to rent a game. I'd rather be able to outright buy it because you can't right now.
Well, and that was a lot of the feedback they got. PlayStation Now's model is changing to subscription once it goes to its live state and not its test, simply because of that. I was actually one of the people who answered that survey for whatever reason while I was at work. And I remember they gave a bunch of options of what they were testing with it, and they got a ton of feedback from people that the individual purchases weren't really the road anybody wanted to go down.
So that's pretty much the one thing that I would like to see and I'm hopeful for this year. And Kingdom Hearts 3, which we've already decided is not going to happen this year. It probably won't happen next year.
Actually, before we roll along any further, I've got a good question for you, Andrew, to go a bit Jeremy Clarkson on it, is what kind of experience would you be looking out of for a remastered trilogy? Because here's the thing, is that I'm getting the feeling that it's, you're looking to have kind of a fresh start on things, whereas I would be looking at it as, reinvesting. I'd be buying the Blu-ray when I already had the DVD. It doesn't matter that much to me.
That is pretty much what I'd like to get. For me, it's that PlayStation, in all of their wisdom, decided not to give us backwards compatibility for whatever reason, and I didn't.
I mean, those words are dead. They've been dead for too long.
Well, actually, they didn't make that decision. We did. When we started selling games used, we told them, don't make them backwards compatible because we'll fuck you out of all the money you want.
Yeah.
So that's not on them. That's on us.
What I want out of a remastered game, especially for Mass Effect, is that I didn't get to play the game. I didn't get to play the story. Brendan has friggin' N7 tattooed on his chest.
Yes.
And I just never got to get that experience. And I loved playing the first Mass Effect. I've heard now, after the fact, that it is the worst of all of them.
Yeah, by a lot.
By a lot.
Brendan just hates the Mako. Because
that Mako.
I want
Mako.
I want them to update wherever they need to make it a smoother game. I think graphically it was already gorgeous. Mm-hmm. They could possibly do something, but I think that would be far too much investment and time in it to
Any tweaks to the combat system?
No. Honestly, it's one of those things that I would have it kept the same. I wouldn't want them to pull a friggin' George Lucas and remaster it and add a bunch of shit that wasn't there in the original one.
I am going to give you a pro tip. Keep Rex. Don't kill Rex.
Oh, man. Rex.
All right.
Keep Rex.
Yeah, I mean, well, this is the thing.
Can I have sex with Rex in the game?
I don't know if you can, actually.
I don't even...
I never did.
Normandy.
I didn't romance the
Muppet
Krogans.
CGI band.
I don't want to think about Krogan genitals. I want nothing to do with
That's
this.
an aggressive proposition. Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is, for me, Mass Effect 2 and 3 were the most important in the series. I played one after release, and I liked it. It didn't jive with me the way those two sequels did. The cinematic quality and the gameplay quality of 2, and then especially, in my opinion, 3, are just immense. And I know a lot of people really get down on the ending of 3. It wasn't really a letdown for me. I mean, I feel like it ends as well as any kind of large epic like that is going to. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, it was just such a great ride. Those games are so well told, and the mechanics in them get so sound eventually that I love it as a series. And I have no doubt that when we get closer to the release, we're looking at 2016 for Mass Effect 4.
Yep.
They'll either do a re-release, or by then they'll be available through a service like PlayStation Now, and you won't have to worry about it.
That's what I'm hoping for. So I'm gonna let's see, everyone's gone. I'm gonna let Michael choose his upcoming game first.
Michael's going to pass because he's really disappointed about the next few months in gaming.
Really?
Oh, man.
All right, I'm gonna go. All right.
Are we going to avoid The Witcher 3 entirely?
No, we're going to get to it later because we're all going to gush about
we'll talk about The Witcher 3 last because that was the one that was probably on everyone's list.
All right, so for me, I think this is not on anybody else's list, or maybe not. Batman Arkham Knight.
That Arkham Knight.
June 2nd, 2015, developed by Rocksteady.
Properly. We're not getting another Origins here. We're getting Rocksteady finishing their trilogy.
Right, exactly. Now, what I'm so excited about this game because it's the finale to the Batman Arkham series. I love these games. I love any situation where I get to play as Batman and beat up dudes and crazy people. Violently crazy people.
Violently crazy people. Yeah.
Juggalos, you mean?
You get to.
You're not trashing like a PTSD
So
wing
yeah,
at some
actually, you know
hospital.
what? Just give me a game where I can play as Batman and beat up juggalos.
That,
woo woo.
Yo, there it is. You've already got it.
Yeah. You get to control the vigilante powerhouse that is Batman.
Yeah.
And the combat system is so smooth in that game. It's so reactive. It's almost effortless, but it's still fun.
Well, I think for me, that demo reel that they showed it with that dive, when he walks out of Wayne Tower and he just leaps out into the night, you're like, he's fucking playing the game. Oh my God. He spreads his wings and goes out and then he lands in the Batmobile, tears through the city, ejects back out in the night. Like, they 100% knew. They were like, yeah, the reason everybody loves these games is they feel like Batman. Let's just take it to 11.
Yeah.
Right? Like, why is there a limit on this thing?
Another sprinkling of Batman onto the stew.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that game just looks immensely cool.
Yeah.
Now, maybe somebody picked it up out of some of the demo footage or some of the test footage, but I'm finding they're having a bit of a hard time, other than the tank mobile, that they're having a hard time getting some of the features across. And one of the things that stood out for me is that they're saying that you can use your grapple gun twice, that you can use it to sort of change direction. And I'm having a really hard time visualizing that, or
You're just
even
gonna Spider-Man it.
Yeah, I think it is going to end up being like that. But I think that if these are going to be bullet points, then here I am. Now I'm sounding all, progressive techie.
Well, if they're going to talk about it, there needs to be video.
This is not the long sword lightsaber situation. There is some precedent to this.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the thing is they've talked about a lot of the features that are going into it, and obviously they haven't shown as much as what's in there, but I think it's because Rocksteady at this point doesn't want to give too much more.
Yeah.
They know, because it's been delayed
It's
now.
it's so close. I mean,
And
it's coming out in
aggressively delayed, a
3
full
months.
year from what they originally said was going to be the release date.
4 months.
They want to have a strong release.
Yeah.
Not to mention, if they try to do too much with the game, they could end up tipping over their cake. There's a lot of layers to it. There's a lot of really fun stuff, and I would imagine that the temptation to take it further would be really hard to resist.
You have to leave something for the player to unearth.
It's a great Batman game, and sometimes you just got to let it be that.
I am really glad they're taking the time with this.
Mm-hmm.
I really am superbly glad, because in the age of patching games, which is a great thing, it's a great technology
For
that,
certain types of games.
you can fix the game after it's come out of box. But I'm sick of developers like Ubisoft who try to release a game in each franchise every year, and it's really only halfway there technically, because it takes 2 months for the game to be playable.
Yeah.
And even if that, they just never fix all of the glitches.
Well, I think we kind of get a situation.
Well, I think actually by comparison this year, Destiny had a really strong release. That game at least worked from launch.
It
Yeah.
did.
Where it wasn't like the Master Chief Collection, which was actually finished games, which just didn't work.
Jesus Christ.
I think it should be said that last week we talked about a lot of different consoles. We are all PlayStation fanatics. I'm sorry for anybody who has an Xbox if we don't include anything that is being released for you.
Well, one of the games I'm going to talk
do you
about
hear
is an
that?
Xbox game.
It's
Oh,
the
okay.
trolls. They're coming after you, Andrew.
That's all right. I'll
Yeah.
join
Talk about
them.
Nintendo games too.
That's true.
They've got a strong front going right now.
So, all right, that's what I got for Batman. I'm excited for it.
Well,
Just one last note on, just on Batman is the fact that, we're very glad that they're taking their time with it, because I think they saw with Arkham Origins that people were sick of shelling out for a whole game just to get an expansion.
yeah. Well, and Origins 2 wasn't developed by Rocksteady, and it had some mechanical type issues with it that people didn't like as much. But I definitely think everybody is just jazzed in general for Rocksteady's release on this.
Yeah.
The opening cinematic is perfect, and I think the way they put it together shows that they understand the Batman story.
That Scarecrow.
And just talking about taking the actual mythos and the structure of the Batman story, huge comic book nerd here, and taking it to another level.
I mean, that's something that series was always very strong on.
Yeah.
They stayed very true to Batman, the Batman aesthetic, the Batman motifs, the Batman story.
So
They introduced a few
black
new
and dark.
outfits. Everybody was a little bit either like really excited or a little bit freaked out about the new Harley Quinn outfit. I thought it looked great.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it was absolutely fantastic. But they have always been true to Batman. This is no George Clooney bullshit.
No nipple, man.
Absolutely not.
No, I'm not
Nipples in the
100 on this,
breastplate.
and I don't know if anybody else has got it, but I don't think Kevin Conroy is going to be doing the Batman in this one.
I think actually it might be. I don't remember exactly. I know people are really pleased with the voice cast.
Kevin Conroy is trying to get a bit away from the Batman, and he's, even though he is in many ways, if you ever watch the animated series, Kevin Conroy is the voice of the Batman. And it's one of the things throughout the games in keeping those people who contracted with Warner Brothers in all of this semi-canon stuff, really, working with these people, it's working with true pros. And I can't say what I would give for a chance to work with Mark Hamill.
Well, picking up on cinematic quality, my game that I am just bubbled over with excitement about is The Order 1886.
Yeah. Yep.
That one is coming to us next month, and it was also delayed purposely by Ready
that?
at Dawn.
220. February 20th.
And
Coming up.
Oh my God,
Less
I
than a
can't
month.
wait. I have been so excited for this game since they announced it. Everything that they've done with it just looks so good. And the best part about it is all of the hands-ons have reported back that the time they're taking in the end here and refining it is showing big.
Yeah.
Because people had a lot of concerns for it when they had hands-on at E3. They said the game had some lag, kind of performance issues, that there were, some general problems with it. It wasn't as polished release as they want. And then at PSX, people got to try it again. And the press who were coming out of that were saying, no, it's fixed, it's tight, this is great.
Yep.
And it just looks so fucking cool.
So you want to give a rundown of the premise?
Yeah, as we understand it, The Order 1886 is an alternate history game that takes place in a version of Victorian England where they've moved time around a bit to give us different kinds of technology and things in it.
Nikola Tesla is involved.
Nikola Tesla, yeah,
He
he's
makes
sort
all
of
of your
Q
weapons.
for these guys,
Yeah, he's the
making
Q
weapons
for-
and things. But the main characters of the game are the Knights of the Round Table, the actual ones from Arthurian legend. And
Right.
they've been made immortal through consuming this kind of magical substance called the Black Water that we don't really know anything about. And they battle monstrous werewolf-like men who are
Yes.
hunting them and killing them in the night in society. And
You
this
play
is
Galahad, right?
yeah. The main protagonist is Sir Galahad, and I guess this is all complicated by industrialism's rise, and there's some kind of like faction of rebel commie people who are running around, going
Goddamn
against the
commies.
establishment.
If we're playing Galahad, we have to fight the Green Knight.
Yeah,
He has to be in there somewhere.
That's a really good point.
but I mean, this game just looks viscerally beautiful. Everything they've shown about it, and their sizzle reels they put out with the art team talking about the time they've taken into making these details and everything. It's so pretty, and
Yeah.
it's so laser focused on what it's trying to communicate.
Also, another point is that it's super gory from what I've been hearing recently.
Oh yeah,
You can
it
shoot
is.
people and you can blow off their leg at the knee.
Yeah, it is horrifying too. Some of the monster transformations they've shown are just unsettling. Bones breaking under the skin that you can see as like an arm extends and then the snout presses out through the skull.
For me, this and what you're talking about with the graphics is, for me, this is one of those games, for what I've seen so far of cinematics and for in-game play, it looks like what a current gen system should look like.
Yeah.
All of the stuff released on PS4.
Well, frame rate.
Well, they had frame rate issues with the demos, but at PSX, everybody's saying it's running just fine.
It is. They did fix all those frame rate issues.
Yeah.
That was my biggest problem with the game. Was it looked like it wasn't fitting onto the hardware right.
Yeah, well, and I
Well-
think too, like Naughty Dog said this about The Last of Us, is they said if they had never delayed that last month, the game would never have done as well as it was because it was all the technical polish issues.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happened with Ready at Dawn. When they pushed it back another 3 months from what was originally supposed to be the release, they've had the time to go back in and say, yeah, we can lock at 30 frames. Yeah, we
Yeah.
can fix all of these kind of issues with the various
Well,
parts of the tech.
it looks like it's a step further than last gen.
Yeah.
It absolutely looks like it is a step further, and from what we've played so far, Assassin's Creed, gorgeous. The animation and the motion capture is unbelievable, but it still looks like something that could fit on a PS3.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be
It's
possible
less
to do a game
blocky,
like
it's
that.
smoother, but
I think there's obviously a lot of tech going on in those games that makes them only technically possible on the current gen, but this is definitely one of the first releases I've seen where I'm just saying, yeah, we can have done this before.
Yeah.
This is a game that's really starting to get involved with the power that these systems have.
and the weapon design in this game looks awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you have like these like weird transistor radios that you can talk to people through.
Crazy Wookiee crossbows.
Crossbows, yeah. You have a gun that shoots lightning because Nikola fucking Tesla makes your weapons and all of your tech.
Well, and too, like, the aesthetic behind it and the design that's kind of gone into it, they just went, like, right down to the micro and every bit of detail. Like, they're like, they can't just have uniforms. And they can't just have medals on them. We have to know what the medals were there for and why they're on the uniform and where they wear them on them. And then when Galahad gets thrown in the mud by a crazy monster, which one's going to break off and he's not going to think about? Because, like, if you watch the gameplay footage, like, stuff happens to your character. They get covered in mud in the water and all these things, and it affects the model. And, like, if the wind blows, only the parts of you that should move do, but it feels so much more focused than a lot of these effects in some of the games that we've seen, just because the tech is letting them take that time.
Which is another good reason to delay a game.
Right.
Yeah. Those polishing.
And I have no problem waiting for it. Ready at Dawn, they did the Killzone for Vita. That was actually probably the only decent shooter that was ever released on a mobile platform like that.
Yep.
And it was really good. I mean, it was a really amazing game, and they definitely have the chops to be building their own AAA game, and this was their passion project. This was the game that they kept kicking around saying, could we ever do this? I wonder if we'll get the chance. And now they did. Yeah. So I am just completely on board for it. Really excited.
I think pretty much all of us will be picking up that game. I'm going to be getting it on the day of. The pre-orders that they're offering don't have anything that is really that enticing for me, so I probably won't do the pre-order. No. But it is definitely a game that I will buy hard copy. Yeah, I've been buying a lot of games on the PSN store recently, and I think I'm going to buy this one hard copy along with Far Cry whenever I end up buying that game.
Yeah, and to let everybody know, actually on the 20th, I'm going to be doing a live stream of the game, so I'll have it on launch day, and I'm going to just be playing it for as long as I can be up doing that on Twitch. Yep. Because I'm dying to get into this.
Yeah. One other one that I have, because I think we're all going to end on the same game.
Yeah, we'll end up talking about the
one other game that I have, if anybody else... Does anybody else have any ones that they want to talk about?
I have a couple of shout-outs I wanted to give really quick. Gigantic.
Yes.
For the PC gamers out there, it's Motiga's freshman game they're putting out. It's in the vein of Overwatch. Yep. It's another cartoon aesthetic arena shooter. Skill-based. This one is around the gimmick that each team controls a gigantic monster that is either, so far what they've shown is a fire-breathing dragon and this kind of owl bear thing. And you lead them across the map fighting at each other like in a MOBA in order to destroy the other person's monster. But it's a 5v5 arena shooter on top of that. So it's these MOBA elements incorporated into the shooter. The game looks like the total package to me. It looks like it's incredible gameplay, beautiful art, and just this like awesomely designed idea. Like they were like, we're going to take that MOBA thing and we're going to pull it into 3D and we're going to do it our way. And I'm just jazzed for that.
Yeah, no, in terms of reaching out for other shout-outs, I'd kind of let it get thrown under the rug a little bit, but also to be said, talking about behemoths and giant monsters, we've got Evolve coming out.
This is actually the game that I was going to talk about next, because it's coming out
We can
soon.
trade on it, yeah. And on top of it, it's worth mentioning that because I decided to invest in XCOM, what's the most recent one? Enemy Evolved? No.
Yeah, they did Enemy Within was the expansion for the XCOM that 2K
Enemy
released.
Unknown?
Yeah, Enemy Unknown. However, but since I purchased that off of Steam, I've got a free download for Evolve. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And in it, you either play a ginormous monster, which
you get like the Kraken and the Behemoth.
I looked into the lore a little bit. They didn't feel like being creative on the name. It was that you're going out and you're colonizing a world, and these big monsters come and kick the crap out of everyone. And so then you could also play as a 4-man hunter team whose job it is to hunt the monster. Now, there are a couple of different ways of going about it. Say specifically, if you're the monster, you can go about and you can try and kill the hunters, or you can go and build up their dormitories, or you can blow up their power stations, and you can put them in a very disadvantageous situation.
Yep.
So, you can kind of sit here and you can look at Behemoth and look at Evolve and say, we got two of the exact same game coming out. But it'll be interesting to compare the two and see what strengths both have.
Yeah, I think they'll play very differently because Evolve is set up as an asymmetric multiplayer.
Yeah, what needs to be said about Evolve is that it's a 5-person game, 4 people play the hunters, and 1 person plays the monster.
Yeah.
And what's really cool, for me at least, is that there's a few different modes. One is the hunt mode, which is the 4 people who are hunters try to kill the monster. The monster probably smushes a bunch of them and has a lot of fun doing it. You can also, I believe, you have to hunt down and destroy the monster's eggs, which seems a little cruel to me. Hey, it's not even about that. That monster's just trying to have a family, all right? It's trying to have a family.
Eat hunters and make babies. That's all it wants to do. Why
Yeah, we're not
can't
very
everyone
kind
else
to the
acquiesce?
alien life we find in video games.
Yeah, you know what? We're really trash talking a lot of these aliens.
Play as a bag of dicks who murder beautiful creatures all across the galaxy.
Go out and find new life, new civilizations, and stomp the crap out of them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sweet! It got some scales.
Yeah.
that was the last of its kind. Sweet, they're more expensive now.
Well,
Gonna make me some boots.
I was really excited at the announcement of Evolve, and I've been excited about the gameplay they showed in the betas and things, because Turtle Rock knows what it does with these kind of multiplayer games. Left 4 Dead was a sick series of
Is
games.
that
yeah,
2K is developing Evolve?
Turtle Rock Studios, I think.
Total Rock Studios. Yep, you're correct.
And they the Left 4 Dead series was great, as with the asymmetric multiplayer in that, when you could do those games where you played as like the hybrid zombie monsters against the 4-player team who was trying to do the survival mode and things. And they definitely have the chops to put it out. The other thing that I like about it is the game is just very graphically impressive. What they've shown for the footage and how the gameplay actually works out, it just looks really nice.
Oh, it's both Turtle Rock and 2K. Sorry,
okay,
I just,
so
I
that's
just
cool.
fact checked it.
There we go.
Yeah, you don't seem to have a lot of situations where it's, oh look, there's the monster all the way on the other side of the map. Bring out your sniper rifles. It seems a whole lot more of, okay, let's go into the really, really dark cave with our light sources and try to find the monster. Oh, that's a really big boulder. It's not a boulder. Oh,
Yeah.
it was nice playing with you guys.
Yeah, that game's gonna be rad.
Sorry, that was my Nazgul sound.
That's good. I liked that.
Yeah.
It got me in the Nas goals.
What was that? Was it that movie? Was it The Relic, where it was like Night in the Museum, but with a giant
Yeah.
monster?
And they bring the thing back, and then it's like killing everybody. Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, it was. There were parts of that movie that were just kind of really just cheesy, but in terms of having something really large that's so deadly that can move so quickly and silently in the dark, I mean, I know it informed a certain number of nightmares for me.
So yeah, I guess the next game and our last game that we should talk about that we mentioned a couple times is The Witcher 3.
The Witcher!
Misogyny Simulator 3.
Yeah. Obviously, a lot of people are just freaking out about how excited they are for this game. CD Projekt Red has a huge cult following from the PC side, and for once in its intended form, we'll get to experience it on console as well. Witcher 2 obviously came to Xbox, and it worked. You could definitely play it there, but it wasn't the ideal way.
In my notes for this game, by the way, when I was doing my research for this podcast, all I wrote down was kill monsters, rescue villages, get princess ?
Yeah, I'm sure you can get a lot, not just with the princess. That seems to be a theme in the series. It looks like a rad game. I love CD Projekt Red. The art and design around this one is another one that just looks great. I mean, it's sort of like, this is Skyrim cranked to 11. They're taking another kind of established genre of game we've all played, the open world RPG, the Western open world RPG, and expanding on it massively for this. In CD Projekt Red's case, apparently they've expanded on it so massively that they ended up, again, delaying this game to get to the end quality that they wanted for it. But I feel like personally this is going to be a really strong release. I do know you guys obviously heard Danny talking about it. I have a few friends who are very skeptical about the quality that's going to come out with this, especially because The Witcher, for as beloved as it is by its cult following, it never garnered the kind of cross-the-board support because it did have some issues. The Witcher, the first one especially, and 2 carried it over, had very dense combat systems. They weren't very accessible. They had some troubles interface-wise on PC.
The combat system, for what I've seen for The Witcher 3, looks really smooth, though.
It does. It's demoing really well. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, until you've laid hands on it, you don't know. But that was something they addressed 1 to 2, just not fully. So I imagine that by now, especially with the development cycle they've had on it, this is something they really had time to think about.
It's looking like it's going to have a bit of a God of War feel to it.
Yeah, just swing, hit.
Yeah, it's got a lot of combo building, and it has that
Yeah.
interrupt with the special ability thing at
Yeah.
the right time.
Well, I mean, more of a, the whole fact that even though your guy is pretty powerful, that people are, you may have magic, but a person with a shield can get around your basic fire spell because they just hold the shield up and walk into it.
Yeah.
And so what I mean about the sort of God of War feel is the having to maneuver and dodge and roll and do these kind of things to set yourself up to take on multiple opponents, because they're not going to hand it to you, and they're not going to say that you can just lay about and create massive amounts of destruction. You try that, somebody's going to come in behind and finish the job.
You know, I always think about this as just weird aside, is that you play all these games where you're in like all this super heavy armor and you're able to like duck and jump and dive and like, could you really do that?
Well,
what kind of superhuman strength would you need to be able to do that?
In The Witcher, he's wearing something a little bit more sleek. He's not like hankering
that's
out.
It looks like the armor design is
plate.
like some leather with some light chain and things
dragon
like that.
leather.
He could. It's a dragon leather.
I'm calling it.
Okay, it's dragon leather.
Okay.
Yeah. Made it-
One thing, a few things that I know we can count on from this game, though, is it is going to be a very well composed game.
Yeah.
Like, for literally the music, the composition,
Right.
the score,
The music
art,
sounds awesome.
and the story.
yeah.
It has so much momentum in the story already. It is going to carry through into this game. So
Yeah.
we know that even if we have some interface issues, we're going to be able to take a really fun ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it bears to mention that the writing so far, from what I've seen from a 30-minute gameplay, sort of just thing on YouTube, that I was very impressed with the pains that they seem to be taking with the story, and especially with the lore. They want you to have this feeling that, men are pushing out into the great wilds, and, they're pushing back the darkness and the monsters, but at the same time, man is this much closer to the darkness that they're encroaching on. There are these things out there, and while you may have fire and witchers and swords and things like that, there's still those little pockets of something out there that you just don't know what it is.
Did you?
It is a very big world. I mean, they do
Yeah.
already have 2 games and 3 novels behind this.
Did you watch the gameplay video with the little weird kid?
Yes, it did.
All right, that sold me on the game alone, at least for the story.
Right.
Because there's just this weird
Yeah, some
golem
kind of like
kid or something.
like brownie type fairy creature that lives in the woods. And
Children of the forest.
right.
Yeah.
He goes out and talks to him, and
He just like his
he has
dialogue
to
is
get his
great.
voice back. That was what it was. in
Yeah,
the
he has to
demo.
get his voice back, and his voice is like vulgar as hell.
It does.
Reminds
the
me of
series does
Sarah
have a very-
from Dragon Age.
The series
Yeah.
has a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a funny series.
yeah.
So, just to sort of wrap up on this, I did put it out onto our social media, asking some of you guys out there what you were most anticipated, and I got a few responses. Local village hero in Portland, Michael Stark, commented back to us, and he said that he's not sure when it's coming out, but he will take vacation and fake an injury if he has to play Fallout Boston when it finally happens.
You think that's coming this year?
No, I
No.
don't think so. Maybe we get that big E3 announcement from Bethesda where they're like, this fall, war never changes.
Bethesda
but
would do that.
They would. That's their way. So maybe Mike will get what he's
Maybe
looking
they'll
for.
pull themselves out of the horrible hole they're in right now.
Yeah, maybe. And then we had Matt Olson, as well as my friend Nathan Brown, seconded you guys on No Man's Sky. That's their big anticipated title. We also had a shout out from another friend of mine, Grant Poulin. He's looking for Uncharted 4, which is scheduled for release this year.
Yeah,
I'm not
in
super
the next week, or not the next week, the next couple weeks. It's really soon.
for the Uncharted 4 is
Yeah.
holiday this year. That's
Is it holiday?
Yeah, it's slotted for holiday
I
this year.
thought I've been reading a lot of other stuff.
I imagine that is getting pushed. I don't see how, with the loss of Amy Hennig and some of the other things that have happened at Naughty Dog, they'll hit that release window, and I don't care. Take all the time you need. The demo they showed at PSX was so good, that series is just so good. That,
Sorry, I take back my statement, though. You're right, it is sort of a holiday release.
Yeah,
I have faith in Naughty Dog, though.
I do too.
They
do
never
good
let me
work.
down, really.
But definitely, if you guys want to, get us and let us know. Keep the conversation going. Tell us what are your most anticipated games. I'm sure there's a million we didn't mention because all of us were culling our lists down from very long ones. You can find us on social media on Facebook as well as Twitter. And you can track down our content on YouTube, SoundCloud, and iTunes now. So that's probably it for this week. Catch us again. This will be posting on Tuesday, and we're coming at you next week with another topic and more nerdiness.
Thanks, guys.
Auf
and ladies.
Wiedersehen.
Good
Don't
one.
stop believing.